At 3 a.m., the deceptive silence over Eastern Europe was violently shattered. For a few fleeting days, the skies above Ukraine had been eerily quiet. But in the brutal arithmetic of this war, silence isn't peace. It's a countdown. Before sunrise, the Kremlin unleashed a staggering apocalyptic armada. 480 attack drones and nearly 30 high-speed ballistic missiles hurtling toward sleeping cities. Down in Kharkiv, the human toll was instantly devastating. Mayor Ihor Terekhov confirmed the grim reality as a 5-story residential complex was reduced to a tomb of twisted metal and concrete, claiming at least 10 lives, including a primary school teacher and 2 young children. But while the rubble still smokes in Kharkiv, a much darker, global revelation is unfolding behind closed doors in Washington. The shield protecting Ukraine is cracking, not just from Russian firepower, but from a geopolitical powder keg thousands of miles away. As the Middle East erupts, the United States is rapidly draining its stockpile of critical air defense systems to protect Israel and Gulf allies from Iranian strikes. The bitter irony? American forces are burning through multi-million-dollar interceptors to swat down cheap, disposable drones, the exact same Iranian-designed drones Russia is launching at Kyiv. We are standing on the precipice of a synchronized multi-continent war. Moscow and Tehran are no longer just exchanging diplomatic handshakes. They are actively sharing naval satellite intelligence and coordinating their assaults. Before we dive deep into how President Volodymyr Zelensky plans to pull off the ultimate tactical trade to secure heavy-duty Patriot missiles, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like this video, and let me know in the comments if you think the West can sustain a 2-front defense. The stakes have never been higher, and the pipeline of survival is running dangerously dry. We begin tonight with a brutal wake-up call in Eastern Europe. Moscow has just unleashed a devastating wave of missiles and unmanned aircraft across Ukraine, leaving a trail of carnage in its wake. Down in Kharkiv, the death toll sits at 10 and counting. But behind the rubble lies a much larger, darker geopolitical crisis. Washington's attention, and more importantly, its stockpile of critical air defense systems is being rapidly swallowed up by the escalating powder keg in the Middle East. For a few fleeting days, the skies over Ukraine were deceptively quiet. But in this theater of war, silence isn't peace. It's the fuse burning down. The inevitable blast came before sunrise. According to Kyiv's military command, the Kremlin fired off a staggering armada, 480 attack drones, and nearly 30 missiles, with a heavy mix of high-speed ballistic weaponry. Ukrainian defense grids knocked most of them out of the sky, but no shield is perfect. 22 targets suffered direct hits. The human cost of this volley is staggering, particularly in the northeastern hub of Kharkiv. A ballistic missile slammed squarely into a 5-story residential complex, reducing it to a tomb of concrete and twisted metal. Local Mayor Ihor Terekhov confirmed the grim reality. Over a dozen injured and at least 10 lives wiped out, including a grade school teacher and 2 innocent children. And as night falls, emergency crews are still digging frantically through the wreckage, knowing that casualty number is almost certain to rise. Meanwhile, the capital city of Kyiv was jolted awake by the unmistakable thunder of anti-air batteries engaging targets overhead. The concussions rattled the entire metropolis. When the smoke cleared, critical utility nodes were in ruins. Right now, nearly 2,000 structures have been plunged into the freezing cold without heating, and at least 3 more civilians have been added to the casualty list. The devastation didn't stop there. Down south in the Odessa region, vital shipping infrastructure went up in flames, while rail and power lines across multiple territories were crippled. This provoked a fierce outcry from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Taking to social media, he blasted the bombardments as barbaric assaults on human life and laid down a blunt ultimatum to his Western backers. The pipeline of air defense hardware cannot stall. Moscow's strategy to freeze and break the civilian population remains unchanged, and therefore the shield must hold. But here is where the narrative shifts from a regional conflict to a global crisis. Over the past week, the explosive back and forth between Israel, the United States, and Iran has hijacked the international spotlight. The flashing sirens in Tehran are echoing loudly in Kyiv. Zelensky himself is acknowledging the stark reality. These aren't two separate wars. They are inextricably linked. The relentless combat in the Middle East threatens to choke off the very supply lines of American-made defense systems that Ukraine is begging for. Look at the sheer economics of modern warfare. American forces and their Gulf state allies are currently burning through multi-million-dollar interceptor missiles just to swat down cheap, disposable Iranian drones. And even then, some slip through the net. Seeing this glaring vulnerability, Zelensky is now stepping up to the negotiating table, offering Washington and Middle Eastern leaders a masterclass in drone defense. After years of batting Iranian-designed hardware out of the sky, equipment Tehran eagerly handed over to Moscow at the start of this invasion, Kyiv knows exactly how to hunt them. The Ukrainians are now mass-producing their own fleet of budget-friendly anti-drone interceptors. The pitch from Zelensky is straightforward, a tactical trade. Kyiv provides these cost-effective drone killers to the Middle East, and in exchange, they secure the heavy-duty Patriot missile batteries they desperately need to stop Russia's ballistic rain. And if you doubt the connection between these theaters, look at the back-channel maneuvering. While the Kremlin has largely kept quiet publicly regarding the Allied strikes on Iran, issuing the standard bureaucratic condemnations, American intelligence paints a far more sinister picture behind closed doors. Moscow has reportedly been funneling high-level reconnaissance to Tehran, handing over satellite feeds detailing the exact coordinates of military assets and naval warships. Some officials are trying to downplay this axis, but the sheer symbolism is sending shockwaves through the Ukrainian leadership. For Zelensky, this intelligence sharing is the smoking gun. It proves these adversarial regimes aren't just casually aligned. They are fundamentally propping each other up. As the Ukrainian leader warned in his evening broadcast, the enemies of the West are orchestrating murder in a synchronized fashion across both European and Middle Eastern soil. If the offense is perfectly coordinated, the Allied defense must be too. The ultimate takeaway is clear, and the demand from Kyiv is uncompromising. The value of human life and sovereignty doesn't change depending on the continent. The skies over Europe require the exact same impenetrable protection as the skies over the Middle East. The debris in Kharkiv and the freezing, darkened apartments in Kyiv are tragic testaments to a chilly new reality. The battlefields of Eastern Europe and the Middle East have violently merged into one. This is no longer just about isolated territorial disputes. It is a synchronized, multi-front assault on the global security architecture. By funneling high-level reconnaissance and satellite coordinates to Tehran, Moscow has proven that these adversarial regimes are fundamentally sustaining each other. They are playing a coordinated, long-term game of global attrition, meticulously designed to bankrupt Washington's defense stockpiles and stretch American military logistics to their absolute breaking point. We are now staring down two distinct, terrifying futures. In one scenario, Western allies recognize this unified threat, pooling their resources and embracing Zelensky's tactical trade. By integrating Ukraine's battle-tested, budget-friendly drone interceptors into the Middle East, the U.S. could free up the heavy-duty Patriot missile batteries Kyiv desperately needs to survive Russia's ballistic rain. In this future, the Allied defense finally becomes as coordinated as the axis it faces. But the alternative scenario is catastrophic. If Washington and its allies fail to bridge the strategic gap between these two theaters, the pipeline of air defense hardware will inevitably stall. The shield over Europe will shatter, leaving millions of civilians at the mercy of the winter, while the Middle East spirals into an uncontainable regional war. The enemies of the West are betting heavily on our paralysis. The ultimate tension remains unresolved, and the geopolitical fuse is now burning at both ends. What do you think happens next? Will the West adopt Zelensky's strategic drone for Patriot swap? Or is the US military stretched too thin to protect both fronts? Drop your predictions in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button and share this video to support our reporting.